following the largest ever exercises by China's forces around the self-governing island. The drill simulated how Taiwan would defend itself against a Chinese attack. Beijing announced it was prolonging its own air and sea exercises around the island for another day. China, which sees Taiwan as its own territory, was furious at a visit to Taipei by the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Across Kenya, voters are choosing a new president to succeed Uhuru Kenyatta, whose final 5-year term is drawing to a close. Most polls predict a tight race between the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the Vice President William Ruto. Emmanuel Egunza is in Mr. Ruto's hometown of Eldoret.
The deputy president was the first one to cast his vote from 6 a.m. when the polling station started. Immediately after, he told me that he was confident of a win and he would accept the outcome of the vote. But people here are really enthusiastic, came out quite early. Some of them came out as early as 5 a.m. And that's the larger picture of the polling stations across this area.
World News from the BBC. Pakistani officials say 4 soldiers have been killed in a suicide attack on a military convoy in the mountainous North Waziristan district. They say the bomber blew himself up on a motorbike. The Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has condemned the attack. The US Department of Homeland Security says it will end a Trump-era policy that has required tens of thousands of migrants seeking asylum to wait in Mexico until their applications are considered by American courts. A judge lifted an injunction that had prevented President Biden's government from scrapping the measure. Police in India say they've traced a 12th century statuette of the goddess Parvati to an auction house in New York. The bronze figure, measuring 52 centimetres, was stolen from a temple in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu more than 50 years ago. Lipika Pelham reports.
The Chola dynasty goddess is one of 5 idols that went missing from the Nadanapureshwara Sivan temple in Tamil Nadu. It shows goddess Parvati, or Uma as she is commonly known in southern India, in a standing position, wearing a crown of rings around her neck and arms. The Chola kings ruled southern India from the 10th to the 13th century. Tamil Nadu officials said they have all the paperwork ready to return the figure back to India. It's been valued at about $200,000 by the auctioneers. Earlier this year, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi said more than 200 idols had been successfully brought back to India since 2014.
French conservationists say a beluga whale, which is stranded in a river after straying far from its Arctic habitat, will be moved to a saltwater tank to recover. The Sea Shepherd Group, which is involved in the rescue efforts in the River Seine, said the animal will be placed in the tank today to improve its chances of survival. BBC News.
Hello, this is the Arts Hour on the BBC World Service. I'm Nikki Beattie, bringing you treats from the wide world of arts and entertainment for the next 60 minutes with the best global arts and culture conversation from across the BBC. Coming up on today's show, the Oscar-winning Riz Ahmed on evening the playing field for Muslims on screen. Best-selling author Malcolm Gladwell tells us about the need to practice and practice and practice until you become a master of something.
Suppose you're a surgeon, a brain surgeon. There really isn't a shortcut. You have to have done a certain number of operations and been exposed to a certain number of situations before you can feel comfortable doing that very complicated life-saving surgery. I wouldn't want there to be a shortcut.
The Tamil writers and filmmakers Pushka and Gayatri talked to me about making their work for the many languages in India. And from Pakistan, music from the Rizwan Muazzam Qawwali group. That's not all though. My guests on today's Arts Hour are author Neil Gaiman, whose work spans the genres short fiction, novels, comic books, graphic novels, non-fiction, theatre, film and television. He's here in the studio to tell us about the long-anticipated Netflix series The Sandman, and we welcome back film critic Rhianna Dillon. Before we go any further, what do you both have to recommend this week? A cultural highlight you've been enjoying that you want to tell the world about? Rhianna, I'll come to you first.
I saw the most beautiful documentary called Fire of Love, which is about 2 French volcanologists, Maurice and
Is 96.8 Fahrenheit. So it's not record-breaking like the heat we had, but it's still a very long, warm spell of weather, and with very little, if any, rain in the forecast for the foreseeable, it does mean we're going to continue to be worrying about water levels and drought conditions. So it's very dry, it's also going to be quite warm and hot also by night, and then the air pollution levels is something else to consider. We're going to start seeing a bit more of an easterly wind, might bring in a little bit of an increase in air pollution as we head towards the weekend. So there's a lot going on with the hot weather. It is likely to break down slowly from Sunday on to next week.
Kirsty, thanks very much. We look forward to that. While Sky's Dan Whitehead is by the River Severn in Gloucestershire.
It is now rivers that are of a particular concern to the Environment Agency. We are at the River Severn, as you say, in Gloucestershire at Epney, and actually the levels here are not too bad, but there's big problems further up on the River Severn, up in the likes of Shropshire. And the problems are twofold, actually. What the Environment Agency has been doing, they've been actually rescuing fish and moving fish out of some of the rivers feeding in to the Severn due to those low levels. They also say that they are carrying out water transfer schemes, essentially pumping in tens of millions of litres of water into parts of the Severn to keep those crucial levels up. The agency also says that it's oxygenating water in some parts to help the wildlife that are at risk. So that is the concern with this heat wave. We're not going to see those temperatures that we saw last month, those record temperatures of more than 40 degrees Celsius. But what's different about this heat wave into August is that it's going to go on much longer. The Environment Agency monitors these levels through hundreds and hundreds of monitoring stations. This is one of them here. This is the, as I say, the Severn Epney monitoring station, the river level measurement station. Those have the pipes that go underneath and really monitor and compare the data compared to normal times to see how low the rivers are getting. So that's one concern from the Environment Agency about the impact on the wildlife and the fish. Of course, this all comes, as you say, this heat wave and this heat wave health alert start at midday today, and that is going to continue right through till 6 p.m. on Saturday night. That's alert really to give the NHS and health facilities at that time to prepare for what are going to be very high temperatures, reaching into the mid-30s and peaking at the weekend. It comes as well, of course, as many of us are facing hose pipe bans. More water companies predicting that those could be put in place later on this week. Southern Water already in place. Friday, South East Water. There's also one kicking in from Welsh Water in parts of Wales from August the 19th. We've been spending the morning at various rivers and tributaries around Gloucestershire. Some of those are at 98% lower than their usual level, their minimum level at this time of the year. So that is a big